Alright, now right here, see the gears we're talking about? See how I've got it in neutral? Got it in neutral. Okay, now what you got here, back here is where the shifter makes this move. The shifter's in here, like your shifter's up here, and it's actually going into these little teeth right here. Can everybody see these? See the little thing right here? The shifter goes in here. Alright, when you get it to the place where you're wanting to move this particular shift fork, it actually is a shift fork it uses between those two. Now, if you ever put a transmission in 2 gears at one time, it's going to be locked up. You know what I mean? Now, occasionally, when you're taking the transmission apart and you got to take a nut off that's on the back of it or something like that one, I'm going to probably have you take apart over yonder. They want you to put it in 2 gears so that it won't turn, because you don't want it trying to turn. So you put it in 2 gears and it can't turn any kind of way. So the whole thing is all one piece right there. All right. So if I take this gear right here and I move it, this one here's, that's the one I got to bump on that. I just got to have a little hammer way to do it. There you go. All right, you see that? That's first gear. All right, you might notice now this is being driven by the engine. This is going through the counter shaft and all the way back to the back to this big strong gear. See that big strong gear back there? There's a little bitty gear about that big around on this end of this cluster gear, or counter shaft if you want to call it that. And the counter shaft on this one's all made in one piece. So these gears down here can't do anything except just turn anytime the cluster gear's turning. So anytime this is turning, it's driving that. It's like I said. Now, because this has got, this little collar here is locked together with that gear, that particular gear there is actually what's driving the output shaft by way of this. So if you trace that down, it goes all the way back here, comes all the way down, comes up and goes out the back. I'm going to have you go over this on your final, okay? You ever be paying attention? You know what I mean? Have you ever not paid attention and then found yourself in trouble later? You did, didn't you? Y'all aren't going to do that this time, are you? All right, then. You better not. That's all I got to say. All right, so now I got it in neutral again. All right, now if I move this one forward, all right, I move that one forward, which is this one right here, and I usually should have me something to hit on this with, you know. Move that one forward and have something to bump on it with. I wish I had something to bump on it with, but I can actually do it if I bump it, usually. You know what I mean? There it is. See? All right, now that's second gear. You got that? That's second gear. Now how's it going? It's going through here, going through the cluster gear, comes down here, and this is second gear right here. It's coming up through this gear and then going out the back. If you actually have, I got marks on this where we look at that. For every turn of this, you know, you're still in a lower gear than what you would be if it was straight, you know, if it was straight one to one. All right, now I'm gonna pull that back. If I can get it to go back. There it is. All right, see, that's neutral again. Now, this one here, when I put this one back, that's third gear. Got it? Third gear means you're coming here, going down, coming up, here, and out the back. So now this has actually become the driving force that's running this, and this is even turning a little bit faster. Everybody got that? All right. Now see, that one's easy to move. I got that one, and now when I put this one forward into there like that, now it's one piece. These are turning exactly the same. Now on the back side, there we go. On the back side back here, I want you to look at this. See that one? That one back there is fifth. That's overdrive. Got it? Not hard to understand. All right, you got that burned in. You could probably do this right now, couldn't you? Because it's real easy. But when we get over here, I'm going to basically have you guys show me how this works, you know, without necessarily moving. Because sometimes if people move this one here too much, those little things will fall out, you know, because this is really designed to be used in the car. And if you're jacking around with it over here, the little pieces fall out. And usually what happens when the pieces fall out is people cry and walk away. Well, what about reverse? All right, I got to turn it around to show you reverse. See reverse? That's this gear right here. See how we're engaging a different gear? Now we're going the opposite direction. And that's a spur gear. And you notice the only job this has on the outside is for reverse, because that little spur gear slides. See that? Everybody got that? See, that's your reverse range right there. All right. Now, if I was looking at this is the engine up here. Which way does that turn? Which way does the engine turn when you're looking at the pulley, or the crank pulley?
To the right.
Yeah, if you're looking at the front of the engine, it turns clockwise. If you're sitting in the car, it turns counterclockwise. And most all engines turn that direction except for, what exceptions are there? When does an engine not turn clockwise? There are some engines,
Any Japanese way, that's
if the engine is in the car backwards, the engine runs backwards. Because the engine, if it's a sideways engine, the engine's always going to turn the same way the wheels roll. That ain't complicated, is it? But on a Corvair, the engine turns backwards.
So it's just the way
Instead of turning this way, a Corvair engine turns back to the left when you're standing there looking at the engine in the back. And probably, you could put a Corvair engine in a Volkswagen, hook it up to a Volkswagen transaxle, but it would have 4 reverse gears. Have people have done that before. You got to move the ring gear on the other side of the pinion, which you can do on a Volkswagen old Bose transmission, the old one. Anyway, everybody understand this? All right, you know what goes right here, right? What goes here? And you got any idea what goes there? This goes there. Clutch disc. In here, you're typically going to have a bushing or a bearing. It has to be checked. These right here, these splines, if they can't be worn out to the point to where they're going to have trouble disengaging. Now, whenever you mash the clutch, the flywheel is here and the pressure plate's here, and they release this. So when you mash the clutch, this is no longer hooked up to the engine. The engine's still spinning with this in between there, but this lining is what grabs. When these clutch discs wear out, you'll start seeing those rivets get, dig into the pressure plate and all. Now, this right here is a pressure plate. It's a pressure plate. And this always goes like that. If you put it like that, it ain't gonna work right because there ain't no room for the spring pack in there. That's why that thing, you might notice, it usually be marked flywheel side. Always remember that the flat side of that goes toward the engine. Can you remember that? Flat side of this goes toward the engine. All right? Everybody understand this? Have you learned something you didn't know before you came in here? That's the idea, isn't it? All right. Now you know how this works. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. I will say this in closing, that if you have a transmission, let's say like one of these, and it's quiet in 4th gear, but it makes noise in every other gear, that will typically mean this bearing is bad. Because 4th gear, it's a straight lockup, and that's the only one where this bearing's not loaded. So the bearing's going to be loaded in any other gear except 4th. And one time when I was at the Mazda dealership, working on an RX-7, it had a transmission kind of like this. And whenever you pull them apart, they got all this greasy stuff. Like a transfer case you pull apart, it's all greasy and dirty on the inside and all that kind of stuff. Well, I took the transmission out of that thing. I knew I was going to have to replace this bearing. And so before I ever tore the transmission apart, I had the back housing off of it. I stood it over in the steam cleaner area, and I had the pressure washer in it. And with the pressure washer in it, I was just hitting it with all that hot water spray. And just let that hot water boil in there and push all of that oil and grease out of there and clean it up real good, I mean, it was steaming and everything. And so I took the pressure washer out of it and let all the steam roll off of it. And then I had a nice clean transmission. It was brand new like this. I didn't have all the little greasy mess to handle. I don't mind getting my hands greasy, but if you're going to do a better job if everything's clean, you got me? And the old guy that had been working there a long time, we called him Smitty, he said, I've been working here 12 years and I ain't never seen nobody wash a transmission with water. I said, what's the problem? I mean, good grief, you got hot water, what's it going to do? It's going to steam all that out of there. It ain't like you're putting cold water in there and let it sit there all weekend. You know what I mean? You don't have no answer for that. There's no problem with it. But anyway, that particular gear, that bearing right there will be the problem. Remember what I just told you? Don't let it go in one ear, pick up speed, and go out the other. If it's making noise in every gear except your direct drive gear, which would be your 4th in this one of these, then that bearing is going to be wrong. Now, I will also say this. If it runs low on oil, then this gear right here and that gear right there are gonna probably be cooked, and that bearing's gonna be destroyed. And whatever bearing is on the front of this one, it'll be ruined too. Because if you've got a manual transmission leak, you better fix it, because it's gonna, sooner or later, because it's a pain. You was telling me this morning when we put oil in that transmission out there, that manual transmission, this is aggravating, right? And it got a dipstick, really. I mean, there's all these other ways you gotta do it. So you're not gonna, sooner or later, you're gonna say, well, I'm just gonna drive it one more time, even though I know it's leaking and it's probably low. And the next thing you know, you're picking up noise, you got rattling, you got burned out bearings and all this. If there's a leak in a manual transmission, you better fix it, or you're gonna burn that sucker up. Automatic transmission will quit pulling. You know what I mean? Manual transmission will keep on working until it destroys itself. Got that? All right then. I think we probably
Don't buy maintenance.
said all we need to say.